The Mascot missed the second Beatwave. On a live field, the most dangerous hand was often the one pretending to help. But Sarah Hale did not know yet whose hand that would be. She only saw the cue fail. The World Cup opening ceremony was already moving around the Mascot in bright lanes of bodies and flags. Every step tied to the track, bleeding through the stadium. The next cue was 8 seconds away. That was the stupid arithmetic of live work. Enough time for a handler to touch a sleeve. Not enough time for command to understand why the touch mattered. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. If the performer inside was hurt, those 8 seconds mattered. If he was not hurt, they mattered more. The approved timing sheet in Sarah's head said support should wait until the Mascot cleared the inside lane. The dark jackets did not wait. They moved like people who had rehearsed the exception, not people responding to a surprise. Sarah saw the failure before command said a word. From her mark near the inside lane, the white glare flattened the Mascot into foam head, stiff shoulders, oversized feet. Tavo Reyes should have hit the wave with a loose turn, left bounce, right sweep, head lift, is less than #0. 4# is greater than. This body locked on the first lift and guarded the left side. Hurt, she thought. Heat distress, maybe. A bad pull inside the suit. Then 2 dark-jacketed escorts started moving before the support queue, and her first clean explanation began to rot. Valdez, field lane 3, Sarah said, touching the earpiece as bass clipped the edge of her own voice. Mascot, missed cue. Possible injured performer. I need, Tavo confirmed. Commander Mateo Valdez answered under the crowd. Lane 3, Hale, hold position. He always started with location. Trying to pin chaos to a board is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Repeat, hold your mark. Sarah stayed on the Mascot. It had not fallen. It had not waved for help. It stood 1 step outside the lane, big head angled a few degrees toward host security. Injured performers folded inward or reached for the nearest handler. This one stayed visible, almost stubbornly so, as if the field light itself had become something to hold. That bothered her before she had language for it. Still, she had no proof. That mattered because field command did not move on instinct unless the instinct came wrapped in a category, is less than #0. 4# is greater than only timing, guarded movement, and a performer rhythm that no longer matched the man assigned to wear the suit. The heat off the turf lifted through her boots. White light erased depth, and from command distance, every wrong motion could pass for noise in a live show. Sarah could almost hear the future complaint already. Specialist overread performer variation, stepped off mark, caused lane disruption. That was how bad calls survived review. They became reasonable after the body was gone. She stepped off her mark anyway. 2 steps, not a charge. Enough to change the field geometry. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. A line of dancers flowed past in red and silver, close enough that sleeve air brushed her wrists. She cut behind them with her palms low. No panic signal, no arm raised for cameras to find. Dane, she said on the performer channel. Confirm Mascot assignment. Is Tavo in suit? A beat. Another. The track snapped into its next phrase. Checking, Dane Ortiz said. Smooth voice. Too smooth for a man who knew how live mistakes sounded. Tavo was green on entry. Give me 10. 10 seconds on a live field was a country with bad roads is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The escorts were already halfway to the Mascot, moving with the clean confidence of people who expected not to be stopped. Their badges flashed under the field lights. Performer risk support, unless some other contractor had borrowed the same dark jackets and flat faces. Valdez returned sharper. Hale, lane 3, you are off mark. Return to position. She did not. The Mascot shifted again, not toward the tunnel, not toward the nearest handler, but toward the open field. Sarah saw the choice in the feet. A person looking for an exit did not move like that. A person looking for witnesses might. She slowed before the escort line. Moving fast would make her the hazard. Moving slow let Kestrel arrive first. Human design, as usual, had chosen the worst possible trade. The two escorts closed at the field edge, one near the left arm, one behind the oversized head, both careful with their hands. Careful looked good at distance. Careful could also steer a person, without admitting it. "Dane," she said. "Closer now. I need confirmation." Still checking. This time the polish cracked. Not much, but enough. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than Sarah felt Valdez, watching through distance and delay, seeing only an assigned specialist drifting out of formation during a ceremony watched by the planet. She had movement mismatch, possible heat injury, early support movement, and a bad smell in the timing. Nothing command could label evidence. The first escort reached the Mascot's elbow before Dane could finish. The second angled behind the suit and turned its bright head away from field light. The music kept moving, cheerful in the insulting way machines could be when humans failed. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than Sarah stopped one pace short, close enough to smell hot foam and turf heat, too late to arrive there first. The nearest Kestrel escort set a gloved hand on the Mascot's left elbow, as if he were helping a drunk uncle through a doorway. The other stood half a step behind the foam head and used his body to block the suit's view of the field. Sarah saw the problem before she heard the official version. Helping hands steadied a person. These hands chose a direction. The Mascot's feet dragged against the turf, not enough to read as panic from command, enough to pull the knee seams tight. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. The crowd base rolled over the field edge and turned Valdez's channel into clipped metal. "Hale, status. Field edge," she said. 2 escorts on Mascot. Movement is wrong. A woman in a dark Kestrel jacket turned toward her, calm, as if stepping into a meeting. Mid-40s, hair pinned clean, badge bright under a spotlight sweep. "Marta Rios," she said. "Kestrel event risk. Performer risk support. We have a distressed performer in an active lane. Kestrel, 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 Kestrel." She did not say Tavo. She did not say the Mascot's name. The omission was small. Small was where bad plans like to live. "The assigned performer is Tavo Reyes," Sarah said. "I asked for confirmation." Marta's eyes moved over Sarah's vest, her field position, the earpiece under her fingertips. "Field specialist, your support channel is not needed here. Title instead of name. Role instead of person. Nice and clean, the kind of language that could fold someone small enough to move." The rear escort touched the Mascot's headpiece at the seam and turned it gently away from open field. The elbow escort shifted his own shoulder to hide the suit's line toward host security. Not rough is less than #0. 3# is greater than worse in a way, because roughness would have been honest. The Mascot's bulk swallowed the motion, making control look like care. "Do not change his sight line," Sarah said. Marta's voice stayed even. "We are reducing stimulus. You are reducing witnesses." The line came out colder than planned. Marta blinked once, maybe at the word, maybe at Sarah's willingness to use it this close to cameras. Then she recovered the way trained people did, by making the next sentence sound like policy instead of pressure. "Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Her gaze slid once to the escort's hand, checking that the grip had not become visible enough to betray her language. The Mascot resisted by refusing the next half step, heavy feet planted, big head trembling with trapped breath. No run. No waving arms. No scene. That stillness worked on Sarah harder than panic would have. It took discipline to stay that still inside a hot suit with strangers steering your elbows. Either Tavo was more hurt than she thought, or the person inside had already learned that making noise gave other people an excuse to label you unstable. Dane came back in her ear, with static around the edges. Sarah, I don't have eyes on Tavo yet. That did not mean anything good. The music pushed into another bright phrase, and the performer lane kept flowing. Bodies passing close enough that one bad shove could put 3 people down. Sarah moved into the only space she could take without making herself the whole story. Between the Mascot's front angle and the lane that led toward the darker field edge. She did not strike. She did not grab. She set her body where the escorts needed empty air. Stop moving him until assignment is confirmed, she said. Marta's expression did not change. You are interfering with performer support. I am preventing a blind escort. You are creating a field hazard. The word hazard landed with ugly usefulness. Valdez cut in a beat later. Hale, clarify. Are you obstructing support? The bass swallowed the last word. Sarah kept her hands low and open. I am holding position with the Mascot until Dane confirms Tavo. It was not exactly true. It was the closest truth that kept her standing there. Marta stepped close enough that Sarah caught the faint smell of rainproof fabric warmed under stadium lights. Field specialist, the performer is distressed. Our team is authorized to escort him out of the lane. Then name him. Marta looked past her. Performer. Forward. The elbow escort applied pressure again, small and patient. The Mascot's feet scraped, foam twisting against the suit's left side. Sarah shifted with it, shoulder nearly brushing the costume, and heard something inside the headpiece. Not a word at first. A breath hitched in hot foam is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The spotlight swept over them, as if cleanliness could be projected from above. Then a voice pressed through the seam, muffled by padding and crowd noise, too low, too raw, not Tavo's practiced performer rasp. Sarah leaned a fraction closer, every muscle telling her not to spook the lane. Hold, she said, to everyone and no one. The voice came again, broken under the music. She caught one syllable, maybe 2, and neither belonged to Tavo. She could not catch the whole thing. She caught enough to stop looking at the suit as a costume. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The crowd swallowed the rest. And for one bad second, the entire stadium seemed built to make the wrong voice disappear before it became a fact. Sarah leaned in anyway, because facts did not announce themselves politely on a field this loud. The voice came again through the Mascot head, trapped in foam and crowd noise. Sarah caught it, because she was close enough to feel the suit heat against her sleeve. Not Tavo. 2 words, rough and thin, nothing like Tavo Reyes, who carried every field cue like a man born counting beats. The Mascot's big head dipped, then jerked when the elbow escort tried to turn it away. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than Sarah. Set one hand near the costume chest, not grabbing, only making the next movement impossible without pushing through her. Field glare bleached the suit's edges. Her right ear dropped the top of Valdez's next command, leaving only her name and a hard slice of warning. She touched the earpiece and leaned closer. Say that again. The breath inside the foam hitched. Not Tavo, Nico. The name landed badly. Nico Sol was not a performer. He was a cue runner, one of the slim shadows who moved water. Cards. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than timing notes, replacement lanyards, the invisible pieces that kept a giant ceremony pretending to be effortless. Sarah's first red collapsed and reassembled wrong. Not injured Tavo. Wrong man. Wrong suit. Wrong hands, moving him. Sarah kept her voice flat because panic had a scent, and Marta Rios looked like a woman trained to use it. Nico Sol, she asked. Field crew. The Mascot gave the smallest nod the oversized head allowed. Hot breath rasped through the seam. Backstage, Nico said. Tried there. They sent me to support. Same people is less than #0. 3# is greater than. The fragments came broken, rubbed raw by foam and fear. Sarah wanted the whole sentence. She could not afford it. The lane beside her kept moving, Flags and shoulders passing close, every performer pretending not to see the knot forming at the edge. "Who sent you?" she asked. "Desk, radio," said Kestrel would handle. "My mark was gone from the next sheet." His voice thinned on sheet, not because it proved anything, but because workers knew what a missing line could mean. A name gone from the next sheet did not make a case. It made a person easier to deny when the shift changed hands is less than #0. 4# is greater than Nico, sounded less afraid of being hurt than of becoming an error no one had to correct. The rear escort tightened position. Sarah saw the line of sight vanish again, his shoulder making a wall between Nico and the bright field. Nico did not run. He pressed his heavy feet down and stayed where cameras, command, and host security could still name the shape, if not the person. "Can you remove the head?" Sarah asked. "No, not here. They'll say I attacked. They'll say I broke cue." Marta stepped in before Sarah could answer. "Field specialist. The performer is incoherent from heat distress." She said it smoothly, almost kindly. "Our support team is moving him out of the lane." "His name is Nico Sol," Sarah said. "He is not the assigned performer. He is inside an active performance costume and interfering with a live sequence." Marta glanced at the escorts. Support continues. The elbow escort moved again. Sarah moved first, sliding between pressure and Nico's left side. Her hands stayed open. Her shoulders did the work. Not a strike. Not a shove. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than a wall with a badge and no clean permission. Valdez came through harder. "Hale, field edge, you are one decision from removal. Clear support or give me verified threat." Enough of the warning survived the base. She had a name, a wrong voice, and a crew runner saying the official route had sent him back toward the people moving him. Not proof by command standards. Enough by the standards that mattered when a body was about to vanish. "Command," she said. "Wrong person in mascot suit. Holding until assignment verified." Marta's eyes cooled. "You are escalating a distressed performer is less than #0. 3# is greater than." Sarah did not look away. "No, I am keeping him visible." Dane broke in hard enough that his old polish scraped. "Sarah, confirm what you just said. Nico Sol is inside the mascot suit, not Tavo." A second of silence followed. In that second, the ceremony did what ceremonies did. It kept smiling. The music lifted, the lane shifted, and the mascot's foam head shuddered with another trapped breath. Dane came back lower. "I'm leaving control point. Checking emergency performer positions." "Start with the first two," Sarah said. If Tavo came out hurt, he'd use the nearest safe marks is less than #0. 4# is greater than already moving. That mattered. Dane hated moving before the plan gave him permission. Sarah heard it in his breath, fast now, no longer polished for sponsors or command. Valdez cut across them. "Ortiz, report location. Hale, you do not have authorization to detain support." "I'm not detaining support," Sarah said. "I'm preventing removal of an unverified worker." Nico shifted behind her, the suit bulk brushing her shoulder. Inside the foam, he whispered something she caught only because the crowd dipped for half a beat. "Please." Sarah planted her feet. "Is less than #0. 3# is greater than ahead." Marta's escorts waited for the smallest opening. In her ear, Dane was running toward the places Tavo should have been. Dane did not answer for 9 long seconds. Sarah counted them, because Nico counted under his breath behind her. A soft, broken rhythm inside the mascot head, and because Marta's escorts were waiting for her to look away. The field lane kept pouring color past the edge of Sarah's vision. Heat rolled off the turf. The mascot suit pressed close enough that every trapped breath came through as a damp rasp is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Valdez demanded Dane's location again, and the command channel clipped his last word into static. Then Dane came back, breathing harder. First emergency point clear. Moving to second. Not calm now. Not sponsor smooth. His voice carried the hollow bounce of a backstage wall and music muffled by concrete. Sarah pictured the performer marks only as much as she had to, not a map. Just distance Dane had to cover while Kestrel had hands on Nico. "Keep talking," she said. Marta's gaze sharpened at that. Sarah kept one shoulder angled toward the elbow escort and one foot inside the Mascot's forward path. "Nico," she said low, "stay with my voice." The foam head dipped. He was still standing. Sweat had turned that into an achievement. Sarah could hear him counting around his breath, not for choreography anymore, but to keep panic in pieces small enough to hold. Dane's next transmission came with a scrape, a hard surface, then his breath stopping short. "I've got Tavo." The words changed the air around Sarah. The Mascot beside her was not Tavo. Now command had a second body somewhere out of sight, and bodies out of sight were how this had started going bad. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than condition, Sarah said, hating the word, as soon as it left her mouth. "Too broad. Too clean." Dane answered clipped. "Conscious. Hurt. Prop bayside. Work light. Mascot head is missing." Behind his voice, Sarah heard a thinner sound, a man dragging air through pain and trying to stay useful anyway. Tavo Reyes. If the night had any mercy left. "Ask him the cue." Marta moved half a step, and Sarah shifted with her, blocking the angle. Dane relayed fast. "Tavo, second Beatwave, counted." A hoarse voice came through, distant and rough. 4 bars after flag turn, left bounce, right sweep, head lift on 2. Sarah closed her eyes for half a blink. That was Tavo. Not dramatic. Better. It was boring. Exact performer knowledge, the kind nobody invented while gasping on a prop bay floor. "And the next field handoff?" Dane asked. Tavo coughed. "Mascot clears inside lane after the silver flags. I never cleared. I was already down." Valdez cut in. "Ortiz, repeat. You have the assigned performer." "Yes," Dane said. "Tavo Reyes is not in the suit." The channel went tight. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than Sarah. Could almost feel command reorganizing categories, annoyed that the world refused to fit them. Marta's face stayed still, but the escort at Nico's elbow heard enough to change pressure. His hand slid from support to possession. Sarah caught the shift and leaned in. "Don't." Tavo's voice broke through again, urgent now, pushed by Dane's open mic. "I helped him." The field seemed to narrow around those 3 words. Dane said, "Tavo, keep it short." "He came to me, said they sent him back. Same as I saw before. Girl from props got supported out last month. Next day her badge stopped scanning. Her name came off the change sheet." It was not a full story. It was worse, because it did not try to be one. Just a worker naming a pattern he had been told not to see. Nico had no place else, Tavo forced out. Sarah felt the suit tremble beside her. Inside the foam, Nico whispered, "Not again." Marta heard that too. Her eyes moved once toward the darker lane beyond the field edge. Tavo coughed, then forced out, "Quiet, corridor. Don't let them take him quiet." Dane went silent for half a second, and the half-second told Sarah plenty. He knew the phrase, "is less than #0. 3# is greater than," not as a secret code, not some childish password, but as the ugly nickname workers gave places where sound died. When he came back, his voice had lost the last of its varnish. "Sarah, the secondary support route runs off this edge." "The one from rehearsal crowding?" she asked. "Yes." One word, flat with ownership. The lane beside Nico shifted as if Kestrel had been waiting for the same realization. The rear escort angled toward the tunnel mouth, where field glare thinned into shadow. Not a drag. Not yet. A gentle adjustment that would look like care if nobody watched the feet is less than #0. 4 hashes greater than Sarah watched the feet. Nico's heavy shoes scraped toward the darker line. Dane said that route was briefed to approved performer risk teams. His route, his safety fix, somebody else's removal path. Behind him, Tavo rasped, "Tell them my hand count. Tell them I was still at 8. Sarah did not need more proof for herself. Command would. Command always wanted the world shaped into categories before it moved. The people doing the moving rarely had that luxury. Then move, she told Dane. Cut them off is less than #0. 3 hashes greater than Dane answered from the prop bay, already turning away from Tavo and toward motion. On my way. At the field edge, Kestrel began turning Nico toward the quiet corridor. The tunnel mouth took shape ahead of Nico like a dark cut in the field light. Not black, not hidden, nothing that would look sinister from a camera crane. Just less bright, less public. The kind of place a body could become a staffing issue before anyone had to say a name. Sarah stayed tight to the Mascot's left side while the Kestrel escort at the elbow kept a patient hand where support was supposed to go. Is less than #0. 5 hashes greater than Nico's suit dragged harder now, foam thighs catching on the rhythm of his steps. The big head dipping as if its weight had finally found his neck. The crowd behind them still roared, but every yard toward the tunnel thinned it, shaving the edges off Valdez's voice until command sounded like it was speaking from another building. Hale, field edge, explain movement. Sharper now. Less procedural. Performer bodies squeezed past the edge of the lane, silver flags swinging close to Sarah's shoulder. If she stopped too hard, she would create the hazard Marta kept promising, is less than #0. 4 hashes greater than the performers closest to her, had no idea their safe spacing now depended on a woman with a bad read. A worse choice, and no time to explain either one. If she let Nico go, there would be no hazard left to explain. Just absence. The field would close over it in one music phrase, dancers filling the gap, flags sweeping clean, some assistant somewhere marking a delay as corrected. Dane came in breathing like he had hit open space. The route was mine, he said. No preamble. No sponsor voice. After rehearsal crowding, we needed a release path for performers if a lane jammed. The words moved with him, broken by footfalls and backstage echo. Sarah did not ask for the noble version. Who got briefed? Approved performer risk teams, Kestrel included. There it was, clean enough to hurt. A safety fix, built because rehearsal studies had crushed too close, had become a corridor for removing a man nobody wanted named. Dane had not meant to build a trap. That did not make the trap kinder. Sarah had learned to distrust damage that came with good intentions. It still broke the same bones. A rolling prop cart nosed across the far side of the lane ahead, pushed by crew trying to keep the ceremony alive, and the small opening Sarah wanted began to narrow. Marta moved on Sarah's right, still calm, still using the field like a meeting room. Field specialist, you are leaving the active lane with a distressed performer. Stand aside. The escort behind the Mascot adjusted the big head again, keeping Nico's face turned from open light. Sarah watched the adjustment and chose the only useful betrayal left. Trust Dane's bad route, because he knew where it bent. Where do I cut them? She asked. 2 cable ramps in, Dane said. Left bend before prop storage. I can reach the cross point. Then run. Valdez cut across him. Ortiz, define route. Dane's answer came fast. Inactive during live sequence. Built for crowding release, not for contractor escort. Enough truth to bleed. Not a floor plan, not a lecture, but enough to put his name on the mistake. Sarah felt the line to command grow thinner as field glare fell behind her. The white light that had made Nico visible now flattened at her back while tunnel shadow rose around the suit. Host security was still in sight if she turned. Nico was almost not. That was the point. The route did not have to hide him from the whole world. It only had to hide him from the right eyes for 30 seconds. The cable ramp under Sarah's boot lifted her balance wrong. She caught herself with a small shift and saw Nico's heavy shoe scrape the same rise. The elbow escort used the stumble to draw him another half step inside. Gentle. Always gentle. Sarah moved with them, shoulder low, hands open, making every inch expensive. Nico, keep your feet under you. 4, he whispered. 5. Not a performance count now. A way to stay human. The tunnel swallowed the crowd into a dull pressure behind the walls. Sarah's earpiece crackled, then lost the end of Valdez's next order. Only her name survived, useful for blame and very little else. Marta's team angled Nico toward the left bend Dane had named, and for the first time the movement stopped pretending to belong to the ceremony. No dancers. No flags. No cheerful lane to disguise the hands. Just cable covers, dark rubber edges, and the oversized suit dragging heat through thinner air. Sarah heard Dane closer now, ahead and to the side, breath rough, shoes hitting hard floor. Cross point in 10, he said. Do not let them take the bend. Working on it, Sarah said, and planted herself just enough to force the escort to change grip. Marta stepped into the new angle. You are out of your assigned protection zone. So is he. The answer cost Sarah a breath she did not have. Her ribs were beginning to pulse in time with the bass, which would have been funny if pain had a better sense of occasion. Nico tried to follow Sarah's voice. The suit lagged behind him. Its stiff foot caught the lip of the tunnel edge, and his whole body lurched forward, big head dropping toward shadow. Sarah reached but checked herself before she grabbed too high and turned the fall worse. Nico hit one knee at the edge of the route, half in field spill, half in corridor dark. Nico's knee hit the tunnel lip, and the Mascot suit folded around him like a bad piece of furniture. The left leg snagged on a cable cover. The seam at the hip pulled tight and held. For half a second, nobody moved cleanly. Kestrel used that half second. The escort at Nico's elbow changed from guiding to pinning without changing his face. The rear escort caught the back of the foam head and used the snag to turn Nico inward, away from the spill of field light still reaching the tunnel mouth. Sarah dropped with him, not grabbing the costume head, not yanking the arm, because the suit made every wrong pull bigger. Hot foam scraped her forearm. Dust rose from the rubber lip. The crowd behind them had become a muffled weight on the other side of concrete. And the ceremony music arrived without words, bright and far away. Performer down, Marta said, calm enough to print on a report. Support removing from active hazard. Sarah heard the lie in the timing. They were not removing Nico from danger. They were using the first real stumble as permission to make him disappear. Sarah saw the conversion happen in inches. Elbow to leverage, head support to blindfold, safe removal to private control. Sarah wedged one knee near the cable cover and put her body between Nico's turned shoulder and the darker bend. The move was ugly, cramped, barely a move at all. Good. Clean moves belong to empty rooms. This corridor had prop edges, cable hum, hard cases stacked too close, and a man inside a hot suit who could be hurt by either side. Hands off the head, she said. The rear escort ignored her and tilted the foam another few inches. Nico made a small choking sound inside it. Marta stepped into the half-light. You are obstructing emergency support. Then support his airway and stop turning him away from witnesses. Her right ear clipped out as Valdez came through, only fragments surviving. Hale, location status. She could not answer and hold the line at the same time. That was the kind of impossible command systems loved to create, then later describe as a failure of individual judgment. The elbow escort shifted lower, using Nico's trapped leg to drag his weight toward the bend. Sarah leaned in to block it, but the sound dropped again, and she missed Dane's warning until it was almost too late. A rolling prop case slid across her left side, or a body behind it. She read it late. Too late. Dane hit the space first. Not beautifully. He came in fast from the crosspoint and shoved the rolling case off its line with his hip, taking the ugly part of the collision and sending it into Sarah instead of Nico. The case slammed her side hard enough to blow the air out of her. Pain flashed through her ribs and up into her shoulder, white and stupid. Her hands skidded against the wall. She stayed upright because falling would give Kestrel the bend. Simple calculation. Miserable. Correct. Dane caught her vest with one hand and Nico's costume seam with the other, not pulling, just stopping the turn. Wrong side, he said near her ear, clipped and rough. No apology. No explanation. She hated that he was right and needed it in the same breath. Marta's face changed then, not much, just enough for Sarah to see the choice forming. In the corridor, Kestrel could keep using soft violence and call it support. Back in field light, they would have to show what their hands were doing. Sarah dragged air past the rib pain. The left side of her body wanted to fold around the impact, and she forced it flat long enough to make the next question useful. Nico, can't you stand? Inside the foam, Nico made a sound almost like a laugh and not close to one. With help. His knees shook under the costume bulk, and the laugh died fast, replaced by a breath that scraped the inside of the headpiece. Sarah got her good shoulder under the suit's edge while Dane freed the trapped leg from the cable cover. The escorts crowded them, but the delay had cost Kestrel. Movement had slowed. The easy removal was gone. Sweat ran down Sarah's spine. Every breath argued with her ribs. The shoulder was worse because it made her lie to herself about reach. The arm wanted to move like it had moved 10 minutes ago, and the body had filed a formal objection. She kept her hand low on the suit, away from the head, away from anything that could twist wrong. Dane put himself between Marta and the left bend, finally useful in the place his own plan had built. Nico rose in pieces, heavy and shaking. The big head tilted toward the pale strip of light behind them. Sarah felt the direction before he said it. The field light had turned from scenery into a target. Why the suit? She asked. Because the question had been burning since the first mist wave, and because now every second cost bone. Nico's voice came through foam and trapped breath. The light. He swallowed. That was why. In the back, they can say anything. Out there, somebody has to see me. Nico's words hung in the corridor with the dust. Out there, somebody had to see me. Sarah did not answer right away, because breathing had turned into a negotiation with her ribs. The pale strip of field light sat behind them, wide enough to promise space, narrow enough to vanish if Kestrel got one clean pull toward the bend. The Mascot suit leaned against her good side, hot foam breathing heat into her sleeve. Dane stood at the root mouth with his chest heaving, one hand still on Nico's costume seam, the other lifted low between Marta and the escorts. No one here looked like they were fighting. That was the trick. A fight would have made noise. This was pressure, angles, small hands placed where cameras could not see. Nico's big head tilted toward the light again. Backstage, he said, each word scraping through foam, is where people disappear. The sentence was not dramatic. It was too tired. The tiredness made it harder to dismiss. Nico was not selling fear to her. He was reporting a workplace condition from inside a foam head that had become his last witness. Sarah believed it because he said it like a thing workers knew and supervisors preferred not to hear. Behind them, the crowd roared, as if the ceremony had not just tried to swallow a man whole. The root smelled of dust, hot rubber, and sweat baked into costume fabric. Somewhere behind the wall, the music hit a bright brass line and made the corridor feel smaller. Sarah looked once toward the dark bend Dane had built and once toward the spill of field glare. Her assigned mark was gone in every useful way. Even if she ran back now, the plan would not become clean again. It would only have one more missing body. She swallowed against the rib pain and put her hand low on the suit, where pressure would steer without twisting. "We go back to the light," she said. Not a speech. An order simple enough for a man trapped under foam. Nico nodded inside the head. Dane's eyes flicked to her, then to the corridor behind Marta. Old distrust moved between them, quick and sour. Dane had protected the plan before. He had polished the language, softened the review, let her carry blame when the blanks stayed blank. Tonight his route was the whole. Tonight he was also the only one who knew how to get around it. "Left of me," she told him. "Keep his shoulder out of the bend." Dane did not argue. That helped. Marta watched the choice land. Sarah saw her measure the difference between quiet control and public resistance. Nico shifted his weight before Sarah told him to. It was small and unsteady, the kind of movement nobody in command would ever write down. But Sarah felt the intention through the foam. One small push toward the light. His own choice, made inside a suit that had tried to make him cargo. Sarah adjusted to him, instead of dragging him, because the difference mattered. Protection could become control if it got proud of itself. They moved Nico in pieces. One step, settle the suit. Another step, check the head. Sarah's ribs flared every time the costume bulk rolled against her, and her right shoulder answered with a dull, hot throb. The crowd noise grew as they pushed toward the mouth of the route. Not louder all at once, but returning by layers. Bass first, then music, then a broken wash of voices. The suit caught on a prop edge near the wall. A small snag that pulled Nico sideways and gave the rear escort a chance to re-angle the head. Nico jerked away before Sarah could reach. The motion was clumsy but his. "No," he said from inside the foam. "Light." Dane used the opening and shoved the prop edge clear with his boot. Then he opened the command channel. The sound changed, thinner and more public. "Command, Ortiz, secondary support route was activated outside live sequence. I built that route after rehearsal crowding. Kestrel was briefed as approved performer, risk access. They are moving an unassigned worker through it now." Enough truth to cost him. Valdez came in sharp. "Ortiz, repeat worker status. Hale, confirm location. Are you returning to field visibility?" "Yes," Sarah said. "With Nico Sol, not the assigned performer. Kestrel is still attempting removal." Marta heard the open channel. Her face did not crack. Her pace changed. The escorts heard it too, and their hands settled lower, ready to look helpful if watched and useful if not. Nico counted once under his breath, then stopped when the light widened. The corridor gave them back to the field in a wash of white glare. Sarah's eyes watered at the sudden brightness. The live lane had shifted ahead without them, leaving a wrong gap where bodies should have flowed clean. Someone would see that now. Maybe not understand it, but see it. That was enough for the next 10 seconds. Nico's suit scraped the tunnel edge as they turned him toward the open field, the oversized head catching light like a signal nobody had designed. Dane stayed on the side. Sarah could no longer cover well, making up for the ribs she was pretending not to have. Valdez demanded, "Who has hands on Sol?" Better question. Still late. Marta stepped out before Sarah could answer. She planted herself between Nico and the field spill, dark jacket neat, badge visible, both hands raised just enough to look calm. Behind her, the escort spread into a soft wall. "Performer support is not cleared to return," Marta said. "Stop there." The field light burned around her shoulders. and Kestrel had to block Nico, where everyone could see the shape of the block. Marta's block looked almost polite under live field glare. That made it dangerous. She stood with her badge lit and her palms half raised, creating a shape that could read from far away as order. Maybe caution, maybe a senior handler managing a distressed performer. The two escorts widened behind her, soft wall becoming harder by the second. Nico sagged between Sarah and Dane, the mascot head tilted forward, seams pulled crooked from the corridor fight. The crowd rolled in a huge bright wave behind them. No one applauded. No one understood. They were just looking because the ceremony had a wrong shape now, and human eyes hated wrong shapes in rehearsed things. Performer bodies slowed nearby, still trying to obey music that had stopped matching the field. Sarah tried to shift left, and pain locked her ribs so sharply that her vision dotted white. Her body refused the order. Dane felt the failure before she said anything and moved into the gap, taking the side she could not cover. "Stay upright," he told Nico. "Field light is 3 steps." Marta's voice cut through the glare. "Performer remains under Kestrel support. Host field staff will clear." Sarah tasted blood where she had bitten her cheek. "His name is Nico Sol." The words sounded small under the stadium. Small was still a name. It gave the nearest host security staff something to repeat, and repetition was how a body became harder to fold back into a role. The name did not stop Marta. Names rarely stopped systems on the first try. The elbow escort reached again, careful with his fingers, aiming for the seam below the mascot's arm. Sarah stepped into him with her good side, not striking, just denying the line. Her ribs punished her for the ambition. Dane used the moment she bought to pull Nico's weight toward the open lane. Not far, only enough to put the suit past Marta's shoulder. Camera pressure lived everywhere now. A crane sweep high to their right, handheld operators turning. Performer bodies slowing because the choreography had begun to bend around the obstruction. Sarah could not count on any of it as proof. Cameras watched surfaces. They did not decide what surfaces meant. Dane stayed on open channel, breath rough. Each word he put there made the route less deniable and his own position smaller. "Command Ortiz. Kestrel is blocking return to host visibility. Worker inside suit is Nico Sol. Assigned performer Tavo Reyes is confirmed separate and injured." Valdez answered fast. "Hale, do not escalate Ortiz. Hold location. Who has custody of Sol?" Better question. Still late. Marta heard it and moved toward Nico's head. "Performer, remain with support." The title tried to bury him one more time. Nico flinched inside the foam. The rear escort's hand rose toward the torn seam, ready to settle the head back down and turn the young man into a costume again. Sarah saw the near loss clearly. 1 hand, 1 second, 1 official-looking adjustment. And Nico would be back under foam with his words muffled into heat. Nico did the one thing no one could do for him. He reached up. Not cleanly. The mascot gloves were too thick, his shoulder was bad, and the head had twisted off center in the corridor. His hands pawed uselessly at the seam under the jaw. For one awful second, it looked like the suit would beat him through heat and bad design alone. Sarah tried to help, and her injured side failed, a bright stab stealing the reach from her arm. Dane caught the edge she missed. "Here," he said, bracing the costume head while Nico tore at the fastening from inside. Marta stepped in harder, official face finally showing strain. "Do not expose him in active field." "He is exposing himself," Sarah said, and leaned her good shoulder into the line. The seam gave with a rough rip. Foam shifted. Hot trapped air spilled out, sour with sweat and fear. Marta grabbed for the headpiece as if she could put the category back over the person. Sarah blocked and nearly went down. Dane finished the turn. hauling Nico one step into field glare as the mascot head lifted enough to expose a young man's face underneath. Dark hair pasted to his forehead, eyes blown wide, mouth working for air. "Nico Sols," he said, ragged but loud enough for the nearest host security bodies. "Field Q runner, I am not Tavo Reyes." The words landed in white light, surrounded by bodies that could not unsee him now. Not proof. Responsibility. The difference was ugly and important. Sarah had spent years watching institutions wait for proof while people bled in the space before it. Proof could wait for people in rooms. Responsibility had bodies around it right now. Everything after that moved in ugly pieces. The escorts froze for the half-beat guilty hands always wanted back. Marta recovered faster, but the recovery was visible now. Her body angled to cover Nico's face, one hand still reaching for the torn headpiece. Kestrel had lost the clean version. Sarah could feel it through the pain burning up her side. Valdez's voice came over the channel, hard and location first. "Field edge, host security to Sol Kestrel, hands off, Hale, step away." Action, finally, born after Sarah, Dane, and Nico had dragged the truth into light. Two host security staff closed from the live lane, not running, careful around performers. And this time their hands went to space around Nico, not to control his face. Dane kept one palm on the torn mascot seam until Sarah gave him the smallest nod. The crowd kept roaring around a ceremony that now had a wound in it. Marta lowered her hand. Her expression stayed professional. Because professionalism survived all kinds of exposure. Valdez came through again. "Nico Sol is under host protection. Hale, you are relieved from field control pending review. Stand down now." Sarah let the words hit. Her ribs hurt. Her shoulder hurt. Nico was still visible. That would have to be enough. The aftermath control area was not quiet. It only had fewer instruments. Beyond the field side barrier, the ceremony kept moving. Crowd noise rolling in waves, as if nothing human had been pulled out from under the costume. The music had drained from Sarah's earpiece, leaving command voices flatter and easier to believe. A host security staffer took the unit from her ear with 2 fingers and placed it on the folding table beside a roll of tape. A stack of laminated passes and the torn mascot head. Without channel pressure, her right ear rang in its own small room. Her ribs hurt worse now that nobody needed her upright. Nico sat on an equipment case 5 steps away, still in half the costume, his face bare and gray under the work lights. Someone had put a blanket over his shoulders, without covering his name badge. Sarah made herself notice that. His name remained visible. Across the lane, Marta Rios stood with 2 host security officers between her and Nico, her expression still professional. Immediate deniability was gone. The rest would be harder. Kestrel still had contracts, language, senior people who would prefer this become a misunderstanding. Sarah had seen enough reviews to know the first draft of every failure was usually written by whoever still had access to the printer. Sarah did not need to imagine the machinery. She could hear it warming up in every careful voice around her. Valdez arrived without ceremony, which was probably the kindest thing he had done all night. "Nico Sol remains under host protection," he said. "Location first even here. Field Q runner. Witness status pending." Nico looked up at the word witness and then down at his own hands, mascot gloves piled beside him like shed skin. He did not look safe. He looked named. That was different, and better by a narrow margin. A staffer gave him a paper cup of water. He held it with both on hands because one shoulder was shaking too hard to trust. The cup trembled against his lower lip, and he stopped twice before drinking, as if waiting for someone to tell him he was allowed to do even that. When he finally drank, his eyes stayed on the torn costume head rather than on Marta. Dane stood near the table, sweat dark at his collar, one hand braced on the edge. He had already spoken once on open channel. Now Valdez made him do it again, slower, into a recorder held by command staff. I created the secondary support route after rehearsal crowding, Dane said. Approved performer risk teams were briefed. Kestrel knew the route. It was activated outside live sequence to move an unassigned worker. He did not ask to be understood. That helped. Valdez listened without softening. You are relieved from performer access coordination until review. Dane nodded once. No protest. Sarah heard Tavo's name next, coming through another Stacifers update. Conscious, contained, contract status, uncertain, statement requested when able. Alive, then. Not untouched. Alive. Sarah let the distinction sit where relief wanted to go and refused to let it become comfort. Sarah waited for Valdez to turn the same machinery toward her. It did not take long. He faced her across the folding table, the mascot head between them, its painted mouth lying open and useless. Hale, you are suspended from field command, pending formal review. Not shouted. Not cruel. Just a door closing with clean hinges. Her shoulder throbbed where the prop case had driven pain deep into the joint. She wanted to touch the earpiece and found only the empty place where command used to sit. Nico stays named, she said. Her voice came out lower than she meant. Valdez's eyes moved once toward the equipment case. He stays named. He stays protected. Then he looked past her at the operations board, where colored lines still sorted the night into important people. Assigned performers, VIP movement, sponsor lanes, media lanes, vehicle lanes. Clean lines. Missing categories. The map had not been evil. It had named what the planners feared losing and skipped the people they were used to replacing. That was almost the worst part. It had simply been confident, tidy, and blind in the approved places. Bring the protection map, he said. A junior coordinator slid the chart onto the table. Valdez uncapped a black marker. Add temporary workers, he said. Queue runners, mascot performers, stage crew, prop crew, support contact review before removal. The marker pressed hard enough to wrinkle the paper. Nobody in the area cheered. Nobody should have. This was not victory. It was correction under pressure, which was smaller and more honest. Sarah watched the ink make room for people who had been there all along. Temporary workers. Queue runners. Mascot performers. Crew. The categories looked small beside the clean old lanes, but the black lines held. They would not fix Kestrel's contracts by morning. They would not save Dane's role or make Tavo's next job certain. They would not erase Valdez's delay or Sarah's removal. Nico breathed over his cup of water, the foam torso sagging around his waist. Dane stood without a channel, his hands empty for once. Martav was escorted out of the immediate zone, not dragged, not defeated, not finished. Sarah picked up her earpiece, felt its small hard weight, then set it back down because it was no longer hers tonight. The motion hurt her shoulder more than it should have. She let the pain finish moving through her before she moved again, because there was no longer any advantage in pretending she was fine. On the table,